Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 12:49. Next case is Mr. Bobby Jones. Mr. Jones, would you please give me your full name and DOC number?
Bobby Melvin Jones, 359474.
Mr. Jones, I want to explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and then the board is going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will allow those persons who indicate they have input to speak. Currently today, speaking on your behalf is Mr. Kerry Myers with the Louisiana Parole Project, your sister, Ms. Thelma Jones, Mr. Robert Lancaster, attorney with law student, Mr. Ben MacArthur. At the end, you'll be allowed to make a brief statement before the board votes. Do you understand our process, sir?
Yes, sir.
This is the matter of Bobby Jones, DOC number 359474, date of birth October the 25th of 1978. He's classified as a first felony offender. He is serving a life sentence on the charge of 3 separate counts of aggravated rape, having been sentenced on October the 6th of 1995. Is that all accurate, Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones, your case has been assigned to me, so I will begin our interview process, okay? Mr. Jones, how old are you, sir?
I can't hear you.
How old are you?
44 years old, sir.
All right. Can you hear me now, okay? Is it something on
Yes,
this
sir.
end?
Yes,
I
sir.
can speak louder. That my colleagues don't want me to speak louder, but I can speak louder. How long have you been in prison, Mr. Jones?
This will be me. I'm in my 29th year.
29th year. So how old were you when these offenses occurred?
I was 16 years old.
16 years old. Tell me about Mr. Bobby Jones at 16 years old. Were you in school?
I was in school, but I only went to school to do wrong. I got to be honest with you. I wasn't doing right in school.
At 16 years old, were you doing drugs or drinking?
I was drinking heavy. I used to mix drinks, and I used to do drugs also.
Okay, what kind of drugs were you using?
I was smoking loaded marijuana. That's when
Okay.
you take marijuana and you lace it with other drugs. In my case, I used to smoke marijuana laced with cocaine and formaldehyde.
And how early did you start doing that? What age were you when you first started doing that?
I had just turned 15 when I started doing that, but I had been mixing my drinks. I mixed four different drinks together every time, and it became a regular thing for me. I used to mix Wild Irish Rose, Night Train, MD 2020, and vodka, and that was my everyday thing.
And what was your living environment? You were living with your older sister, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And she's the mother of the 3 victims in this case?
No, sir. My second to the oldest sister is Thelma, the one that's on the Zoom right now. She was my legal guardian. My oldest sister is the mother of the children that's involved.
Good girl. Okay. So you were living with another sister at the time?
Right. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So who else was living in that house with you?
It was me, my sister Thelma, her 2 twin boys, my other sister Mabel, and my brother Calvin.
So tell me how it happened that over this period of time, you had sex with these 2 girls and boy. Tell me about it.
What led up to it was that I was in a very dark place, sir, and I experienced something that it really messed me up. I watched my mom die when I was 11 years old. I didn't know how to handle that, and it led me to start using. I was only trying to stop from seeing what I saw. Every day I would relive my mom passing away, and I just wanted to make it stop. I just went about it the wrong way. I don't even know how it even got that far.
Now, these children were under 12 years old, weren't they? Weren't they young children?
Yes, sir, there was.
Now, how did this start? How did it happen that you began to have sexual relations with all three of these children over a period of time?
I can't remember, but I do know that it was on two separate occasions. However, I really can't remember the details, but I take full responsibility for what I've done. I'm not denying it. I was wrong, and I am sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me let you finish.
I sincerely apologize to my victims. I regret what I've done, and I'm ashamed of what I've done. But I have,
Do you have any relationship with your sisters now or anyone else in your family?
yes, my sister Thelma, my sister Maple, I talk to them regular.
So let's talk about what you've done while you've been in prison. Tell me, what are some of the things that you believe have been most effective on you to have you recognize wrong that you did and be able to help you heal and understand it and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So tell me what you learned or what things have impressed you the most while you've been in prison.
Well, it was a couple of programs that really had a major effect on my life. Victim awareness. I don't know what the process for getting in victim awareness now, but when I went through it, you couldn't get in unless you was willing to accept full responsibility for your crime. And that was like my moment of epiphany. That was my wake-up call. That was when I stopped being in denial. That is when I just, I accepted it. And I start from there, I tried my best to make amends. It was no more denying it because it's like every program that I took, I couldn't get around it. So I understand that accepting full responsibility for my crime was the only avenue that I had to change. There was no way I could change if I did not accept full responsibility for what I've done. And that had a great impact on me. Another class that had a great impact on me was risk management, sex offense treatment program. In that program, the whole thing basically deal with how not to offend again. They give you all the tools, it's 27 risk factors. The one that stood out the most is the high risk. When you are in a high risk situation, it teaches you how to recognize it. A high risk situation, according to the program, is any situation that you place yourself in or that others place you in where you have access to a victim. So, and can I give an example of a high risk situation?
Sure, yeah.
An example of a high risk situation with if I was hungry and I stepped into a McDonald's and they had like 6 people in line and the 6th person was a minor, I wouldn't get in line behind the minor. I would go sit down and let somebody else get in line, and then I would get in line. I wouldn't have no access to a victim or a potential victim.
Ask him to state that again for you, please. Ask him to say something, please.
Speak.
Hello?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
speak this way, because the computer's restarting, so speak this way towards the speaker.
Okay.
And just ask him to restate that.
Mr. Jones, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones, you cut off when you gave an example of the risk, the high risk factor, okay, one of the risk factors. Could you repeat that to us, please?
I said an example of a high risk situation would be if I went into a restaurant to get something to eat and they had like 5 people in line and the 5th person in line was a minor. I wouldn't get in line behind the minor. I would go sit down and wait till the line go down or wait till someone else get in line, and then I would get in line. I wouldn't be nowhere near.
you took thinking for a change, are you currently in thinking for a change? You were in thinking for a change when I read the report. Have you finished that program yet?
No, I'm not finished yet. I got like 4 more weeks, but I am currently taking it. And thinking for a change it deal with correcting thinking errors. The 4 main areas of thinking for a change is your thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and beliefs. You know, I corrected my thinking error. One of my thinking errors was thinking that every time something happened, it was always somebody else's fault. But now I realize that in any situation I find myself in, it's for something that I did or something that I failed to do. It's my fault.
Mr. Jones, it looks like in October of 2009, you got your GED, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, I'm not sure I know what CHANGE is. Change.
Change.
Acronym or something. Tell me what that is.
Change means cultivating human abilities necessary for growth, enhancement, and development. That is the name of the Islamic group that I'm a part of in Angola right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And can you see us now?
Yeah, I can see you now.
Okay, tell me about the group Change. Tell me your role in it and tell me what it does.
Well, I used to be the vice president of Change. Change is actually an Islamic group. It's the faith-based group that I'm a part of in the prison. And we have a young men's program. I'm also a teacher in that program every Monday night and Friday night in the education building. The purpose of the classes that I teach, you have a lot of guys that come into the religion of Islam and they don't really know. So before we allow them to, go around thinking that it's some type of radical religion, that's why I step in and teach them what the religion is all about.
When did you take the sex offender treatment program?
In between 2009, 2010.
Now, you got a write-up in 2018. And the write-up basically had to do with you making sexual remarks to another offender's mother who had a young girl with her during visitation. Tell me about that. Tell me what was going on there. Tell me about that.
Well, it was a simple misunderstanding. I take full responsibility for my actions.
I hear that, but tell me specifically, what is it that you said and what is it that you meant to convey?
Well, she didn't say I said it. Her son said that I told his mama something about some nuts or something in the visiting shed. And when I was approached about it by the warden. I explained to the warden at the time.
So explain to me what it is you did. Tell me what you did.
Well, I had asked her daughter went and got some wet peanuts that they sell in the visiting shed. And I didn't know they sell them. And I asked her, I said, you really like those? And she said, yeah. And she gave me one and she said, here, try one. So I tried one. And when the son came in, I got up and told him, y'all have a nice day. And I left. A week and a half later, I got a call from the warden's office to come to the warden office. And that was the complaint against me. But I take full responsibility for it because I didn't even have to go on the floor. So I'm sorry for that, and I take full responsibility for that. That was on me.
Mr. Jones, let me ask you, in your education and your learning through your sex offender treatment, have you come to grips with the fact of what you did? And the reason I'm trying to formulate a question, I guess, and that is, you were 16 years old.
Yes, sir.
These children were young, but they weren't that much younger than you. have you learned that maybe you have an affinity for younger children, or whether this was something, what have you learned about yourself in this crime that you committed?
I learned that I had these thinking errors and I needed help. I don't think that it was, you know, a want for younger people or nothing like that, because when I committed this act, I was high out of my mind. I was high. I got to admit it. I was on drugs and I was drinking. And this is just a unfortunate situation. You know, I don't know how that even come about. I don't even know how I even let that go that far. Like, I don't know what made me go to that point. However, I did, and I take full responsibility for it. And I apologize to my victims. I sincerely apologize. I regret what I've done, and I'm ashamed of what I've done.
I know you're going to the Louisiana Parole Project if you are granted parole. What's your plan beyond that?
Well, considering that drugs and alcohol played a major part, I've asked my attorneys to get with the Parole Project with Mr. Kerry Myers to find out where is the nearest AA clinic where I'll be residing at in New Orleans, because I don't want to go backwards. You know, I want to be in the clinic where I can go and have somebody to talk to, and even possibly start instructing classes myself. This is my, you know, plan to stay sober, to not go backwards, and to take the things that I learned in my sex offense treatment class to never offend again.
Warden, what can you tell us about Mr. Jones?
So, did you read the report that he got, in the visiting room? Did you understood it clearly?
I'm sorry? Yes, I did. I read it. I heard what he said. I read the report. They seemed to be at odds with each other, but I heard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So,
Do you have any other information besides the report as it was written?
no, I just have it as the investigation was written.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So other than what he said and the things y'all talk about, I really have nothing else to add to it.
Thank you, Warden.
So,
Okay, now we'll hear from your supporters. Mr. Kerry Myers.
Yes, good afternoon. Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. Should Mr. Jones be granted parole, Mr. Jones will go to his aunt, Lula Mae Brown in New Orleans. You will note from the package that was submitted that there are other registered persons in that area, so that area has already been vetted. Obviously, it would still have to be approved by PNP. It would be no point in having to do dual registration fees by being residential in our program and then moving a month later to New Orleans. Again, we'll provide case management services through our New Orleans case manager for Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Ms. Thelma Jones.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Jones.
I just want to say that I have kept in touch with my younger brother, Bobby Jones, through phone calls and letters while he's in prison. And I'm very proud of the man he has become. He is more mature, and he has shown that he understands the depths of his offenses, and he has set out to become a better man. I have witnessed the changes he's made and his growth in the way he speaks and in the ideas that he shares. His maturity from a 16-year-old young man to the man that he is now is very clear to me. I believe, based on what he has shared with me, that he is very remorseful for what he done to my nephew, Ronnie, my niece, Javonder, and my niece, Candace, who I love very much. And he has taken full responsibility for his actions. support my brother Bobby because he has taken advantage of rehab programs while in prison, and he has obtained his GED, and he's just demonstrated a willingness to become a better person. He has put in the work to change, and he has my full support for reentry into society if granted.
Thank you, Jones. Mr. Lancaster, if you would introduce Mr. MacArthur. And
Good afternoon, Robert Lancaster with the LSU Parole and Reentry Clinic here today representing Bobby Jones. With me is Ben MacArthur, second-year student at the Law Center enrolled in the clinic. As a second-year student, Mr. MacArthur is not certified under Louisiana Supreme Court Rule 20. He's worked with Mr. Jones in preparation of today's hearing, also prepared the packet that was submitted to the committee in advance of this hearing, and with the committee's permission, can make a statement of support.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Mr. MacArthur, we'll get to you in just a second. Mr. Jones, is there anything you'd like to say to the board before Mr. MacArthur closes out for you?
I sincerely apologize to my victims. And I take full responsibility for what I've done. I'm not the same 16-year-old adolescent who committed this horrible crime. You know, I've changed. My programming that I've been through worked for me. It taught me a lot of things. More importantly, it showed me the error in my ways. And I'm just asking that, you know, I be judged by the man that I have become because of my program. I've changed. I'm not the same guy. In fact, I will never be that guy ever again.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. MacArthur?
Yes, thank you, members of the board. As the science of, you know, the human brain and emotional development has developed, it's showed that juveniles are different from adults in terms of how they, you know, control their ability to control their emotions, regulate their behavior is not as fully formed as an adult, but also their potential for reform and rehabilitation is much higher than an adult offender. And the courts have recognized this. The Louisiana legislature has recognized this with constitutional amendments, with statutes, and this parole board with its own board directives has recognized this as well. Mr. Jones was incarcerated when he was 16 years old. He was raised in a negative environment. He had an extreme substance abuse problem. But since his incarceration, he's taken the steps to understand and change those underlying issues. You know, he's taken levels 1, 2, and 3 of risk management. He signed up for level 4 facilitation class and can finish that as a condition of his parole release. He's taken victim awareness. He's been in Alcoholics Anonymous, many others. He's facilitated programs. He's worked as a reentry mentor, and he's held positions of leadership in the Islamic community. If he's released, he'll have the support of his aunt. The Parole Project will provide any necessary reentry programming. He'll be provided with a home, and he has employment lined up, waiting for him. And he also plans to be active in Alcoholics Anonymous and the Islamic community if released. And Mr. Jones just respectfully asked his committee to look at him as the 44-year-old man he is today, and not the 16-year-old that he was, you know, 28, 29 years ago.
Thank you, Arthur. Mr. Jones, are you currently in phase 4 of the sex offender treatment program, or are you signing up for that? Is that something you want?
I've signed up and they said I should start next week.
Okay, and you're currently in thinking for change, got about a couple more weeks to do that?
4 more weeks of thinking for a change, sir.
All right, thank you. Now we're ready to vote.
Yes.
Here we go. Mr. Jones, I have thoroughly enjoyed our interview. You've been very honest with us. You know, you've been in prison for 29 years. You came to prison as a 16-year-old boy.
Yes, sir.
Committed a horrible offense. There's no question about that. But you were 16. That's you've come a long way from that 16-year-old boy who was a drug addict, who had a very difficult background to cope with. You've gotten your GED, you've taken some very good classes. You obviously are aware, very remorseful for the crime that you've committed. You have helped others while you've been in prison. I'm going to accept you at your word for the comments that you made on the write-up you got 2018. I'm just simply going to point you back to remembering those trigger points that you need to make sure those points that you need to stay away from. Comments that you're going to be under a cloud for the rest of your life. So you need to make sure that you don't make foolish comments like that, or comments that might be misinterpreted, as perhaps this one was at that time. So based upon all of those things, based upon the comments by the ward, and based upon your transition plan, based upon the support you have from family, it would be my vote to grant your parole conditionally upon your completing, thanking for a change, enrolling in and completing phase 4 of the sex offender treatment program. After that, then being under the supervision or the guidance of the Louisiana Parole Project, also 3 AA meetings per week. And those are my conditions. I'll leave it to the other board members to vote. And if they vote similarly, they may add conditions as well. So that's my vote. I'm only one of 3. Mr. Roche?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jones, my vote is the same. Grant upon completion of phase 4 of the sex offender treatment and thinking for a change. And the conditions are the same as Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Ms. Jackson?
And I concur, Mr. Jones. My vote is the same.
Mr. Jones, you have 3 votes to grant your parole conditioned upon your finishing, thanking for a change, and enrolling in completing phase 4 of the sex offender treatment. 3 AA meetings per week, and follow the recommendations of the Louisiana Parole Project. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carthy, good job, sir.
Thank you.
This whole case was really confusing for me. It's just very different than I think anything we've seen. And I can't find any records, probably because he was 16 years old. So he's a minor and they're just not going to share information. They really didn't get into, I don't recall. So why is it confusing? For one thing, he was 16 when he committed these crimes, but he received this sentence that we haven't seen given to people who have committed worse crimes, and when they're truly, like, when they're older, like, so I'm just wondering how it is that he ended up getting like the book thrown at him. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have. I'm just saying that we've never, we're so accustomed to seeing where a grandfather can literally, to his 4-year-old grandchild and then get a 5-year sentence. And here it is, we have a 16-year-old who was abusing 3 children, a boy and 2 girls, but it wasn't even clear exactly how old they were. And then this is now going to be his 29th year in prison. And just like missing information, is he 16 and they were 15 and 14? Or were they like 5 and 6? And from what like Mr. Marabella said, he said that they were close in age. It's Now he's talking about at the beginning what he was drinking. That's just like poison. Was it like these three of like the worst, basically pure alcohol? Like if you drink any of those alone, and he was mixing it. Who does that? It's like hangover in a bottle, blackout in a bottle with the hangover. And then he was talking about his drug use but I don't know, some of it, like when he went into watching his mother die, and it just felt rehearsed. And you might say, okay, it felt rehearsed. On the flip side, you might say, it's really great. He had insight into what caused him to what's seeing your mother die. It will make you want to be drunk and do drugs, and then that led to other things. I think what they're trying to find out is he a predator, or is he just a 16-year-old? And we just don't have enough information. We don't even know the age of his victims. Is he a classic predator? Is he a classic roach? Is he a classic? And I don't know. I don't think that it fits that criteria. But again, we just don't have the information. So what am I supposed to base it on? I mean, of course, there's a difference if he's 16 and they're 14, versus he's 16 and they're 8. But it does surprise me that he got such a long sentence, just because we've never seen that. Really, we haven't. We've seen far worse predators get shorter sentences. And then you have that write-up, which is pretty sketchy. He's and that's a big deal, frankly, because if he's making a comment like that in 2019 in prison, where they would go and give him a write-up, it makes you wonder if he's changed or the whole thing is just a show. Something about to do with wet nuts. I didn't know they sell wet nuts. I can only imagine what he might have said. But to me, it makes a big difference. Now, was it possibly completely innocent? It could. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can thank someone for giving you wet nuts, and for it to just sound wrong. um, For me, my biggest concern is this guy a predator? Is he like, and if he is, then it's like, you don't let him out. I mean, keep him locked up. But it's not clear to me from the information we have whether he's a predator or whether he's, just a drug rattled 16-year-old, coercing his younger cousins to do things that they don't want to do. And it's just, there's a difference. They're both bad, but there's a difference. One is someone who has a mental illness who will keep reoffending and keep going after little children, and you have to keep that person locked up. And the other is a person of the circumstance that does not have an affinity towards children. And again, we don't have enough information to know. We just don't know. We don't even know how old they were. You would think that that for a case like this, you would have psychiatrists interview him, several of them. You get several opinions. Like, it's a pretty serious thing. You want to know the answers to this, but You know, I'm just hoping that it wasn't that he's not a predator, and that he'll get out. And he has a lot that he has to go through. I gotta tell you, it could not have been easy for him being 16 years old if he's been serving all his time in Angola, showing up with that on his jacket at 16. He's I'm sure he has paid for his crimes many, many, many times over in other ways. But I do want to hear your thoughts on this. Oftentimes you have incredible insight, or you've caught parts of the hearing that I missed. So please do put it in the comments, and it will help me try to get to my opinion on this. Also, if you have any insight into how he received such a long sentence while others just haven't, be curious about that. But with that, I'll let you go.